Time: 4:12 a.m. Location: Redstone Military Base, Arizona. Unit: 103rd Special Forces Battalion, Alpha Team. Captain Royce Dunn woke up to a call from the duty officer. When the red mark, Alpha/Red, appeared on the monitor, he immediately understood. This was not a drill. Headquarters says there's been a biological leak in Los Angeles. The streets are blocked. Riots have broken out. We've lost contact with several units in the West. What kind of biological leak? Royce muttered as he put on his camouflage gear. They're talking about some kind of virus. But everyone who came into contact with the infected died, and then came back. The room fell silent. Someone joked. What? Like in that zombie movie. But no one laughed. Briefing room. Colonel Tate addressed the companies. The official task: take control of the city of Glendale, where 2 CDC, Centers for Disease Control, facilities are located, and evacuate the personnel. It is known that the situation there is in complete collapse. Civilian groups are fighting their own neighbors. Our task is to save science and to keep the situation under control. Satellite images appeared on the screen: burning streets, overturned cars, silhouettes of people running on all fours. This is not a peacekeeping mission, added the colonel. This is war, and it has only just begun. The Alpha column sets off. Military armored personnel carriers, Humvees, and helicopters head towards Glendale. The atmosphere in the cabin is tense. Everyone is checking their equipment, preparing their automatic weapons, and checking their knives. Sergeant Jacobs silently stares at the forest outside the window. Do you think we're ready for this? Asks Private Nelson, a new recruit. No one is ready for this, son, Jacobs grumbles. But we're not the first ones to die. We're the ones who will hold out until the last bullet. A figure flashed behind the trees, twisted, like a mannequin broken by a puppeteer. They noticed it, and silently understood. Something had already begun. The convoy stopped near a destroyed checkpoint. A blown-up Hummer, dead soldiers in body armor, scattered weapons. Blood on the asphalt, still steaming in the morning sun. Captain Royce Dunn was the first to get out. There was a smell of burning in the air, and something else, sweetish, rotten. Movement on the perimeter, whispered Sergeant Jacobs, looking through his sights. 4. No, 5 bodies. They're moving, strangely. The soldiers formed a battle line. First contact is always chaotic. A man in civilian clothes ran out from behind an overturned car. His body was covered in wounds. His eyes were whitish, like those of a dead fish. He didn't scream. He just rushed at them with his arms outstretched. Royce raised his rifle. Stop. Military. Get down on the ground. But the creature didn't stop. The first shot, to the torso, had no effect. It didn't even slow down. Then Jacobs aimed at the head. The bullet shattered the skull. The body fell like a disconnected doll's body. Damn. It's true. This isn't a movie, someone muttered. The street sweep began. They walked through the neighborhood, clearing the houses. In the first one, there was no one. In the second, there was a mother and child, frightened but alive. The soldiers escorted them out and handed them over to the medics. In the third house, there were 2 creatures, former humans. The soldiers acted decisively, shooting them in the head, quickly clearing the area. But one of the recruits, Private Lee, hesitated. A girl in white pajamas. She stood there, silent, motionless. He moved closer, and then she jumped. Only Jacobs managed to save her. He shot her at point-blank range. Lee lay trembling, with scratches on his face. Royce, we're losing control. If there are more of them in the center, we won't make it out alive, Jacobs said, looking at the map. We have to get there, replied the captain. The CDC headquarters has data on the virus. If they disappear, it will be the end for everyone. There was static on the radio. Then a voice. This is Citadel. I repeat, Citadel. The CDC facility is under attack. Zap zap. Evacuation needs help. The connection was lost. Captain Dunn looked at his men. There was fear in their eyes. But there was something else too. The will to stand. Even when hell had already begun. Everyone into armor. We're going into the heart of this madness. The convoy moved again. The Humvees slowly crawled through the silence that hung over the city. Only the crunch of broken glass under the wheels and the dull hum of the engines. No birds. No people. It's like the whole city is dead, whispered Private Banks, his finger on the trigger. Because it is, replied Sergeant Jacobs. Ahead was a fork in the road. To the left was the highway. To the right were narrow residential neighborhoods. Captain Royce Dunn made a decision. Through the neighborhoods. The highway is a trap. The first yard. The gate is open. A child's bicycle lies in the middle of the path, its wheels still spinning slightly, as if something had just run away. The door to the house is wide open. In the room, the TV flickers with static. Royce and 3 fighters enter. Carefully, silently. There is blood in the hallway. Not a puddle. Traces. As if someone had been dragged. In the kitchen, a woman with her throat slit, her body in a chair. She slowly rises. A shot. Royce shoots first. The soldiers are silent. It's not the first time. But every time, it really hurts. In the neighboring yard, an emergency generator is running. Inside the house are 4 living people. 3 adults and 1 child. They survived thanks to the airtight doors in the basement and their supplies. Where did all this come from? Asks the older man holding the girl in his arms. Is it a weapon? Biological? Royce doesn't answer. Because he doesn't know himself. The CDC. That's where we're headed. If anyone else is still alive there, they'll have the answers. Take the child. We'll stay. Silent agreement. The child sits in the back of the armored vehicle. On the radio. This is Citadel. Code red. The CDC facility has been breached. I repeat, the inner perimeter has been broken. Request immediate assistance or coordinates for air evacuation. Royce taps the map. 3 blocks left. We won't make it. At least get the data. Sergeant Jacobs clenches his jaw. Or at least some of them. The command sounds again in the convoy. Everyone get ready. The last few streets will be hell. With every passing minute, the virus engulfs the city. But the military is still holding on. And as long as communication remains, there is hope. Even if that hope lies in the fragile gaze of a child in the back seat. When there are 3 blocks left to the CDC, the sky darkens, not because of clouds. Smoke rises above the rooftops. The Center for Disease Control building, an hour ago a symbol of hope, now resembles a bunker in the middle of hell. Royce holds his binoculars. The east entrance is closed. The windows are barricaded. But there is movement. Through the thermal imager, he could see people. At least 3. One of them was wearing a protective suit. That meant there were still scientists left. Alpha 1, prepare for a breakthrough. The goal is to extract the survivors, obtain data, and exit with minimal losses. The military moved quickly. The streets were blocked by abandoned cars. The Hummer rammed one of them, opening a narrow corridor to the rear entrance of the CDC. The infected began to jump out from around the corners. Not dozens, hundreds. Royce gives the command again. Take your positions. Fire to kill. The bullets tore through the dead flesh. But that didn't stop them. They climbed onto the armor, banged on the glass, howling like a pack of wolves that had lost their fear. Sergeant Jacobs breaks down the back door. 3 scientists run inside. 1 woman is wounded. Another is carrying a case with hard drives. What's in there? Royce shouts, providing cover. Data. The original strain. The first samples. And the name of patient 0, the scientist gasps. Enough. Back. But now everything is different. Zombies block the retreat. One of the Hummers is engulfed in flames. No one got out of it. Royce makes a tough decision. Change of plan. Retreat is impossible. We're breaking through to the roof. Signal for evacuation by air. The team climbs the service stairs. Around the CDC are clouds of smoke, the howling of the undead, and gunshots that are becoming increasingly rare. 10:43. On the roof. Royce calls. Citadel, this is Alpha 1. Evacuation coordinates. 33. 5385 N, 112. 1860 W. I repeat, evacuation required. We have 3 civilians, data on the strain, 1 wounded. Radio noise. Alpha 1, we hear you. Air Group Falcon 2 is already in the air. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. During which everything could change. Royce inserts the last magazine into his rifle and says, hang in there. Until the end. Because behind us are all those who can still survive. The wind was getting stronger. Crows circled above the roof of the disease control center, and below, zombies roared, their wild cries merging into one endless growl. The soldiers on the roof prepared for the worst. 3 minutes to the contact perimeter, Lieutenant Royce reported, watching the chronometer. Sergeant Jacobs set up the signal for the helicopter. A smoke grenade, a heat beacon, and a handheld laser pointer aimed at the sky. The zombies were already storming the last door leading to the roof. They banged on the metal, tearing through it, leaving bloody marks. Take your positions. Royce shouted. Cover the east sector. Don't let them get up. TU. The propellers roared. A UH-60 Black Hawk flew over the roof. It turned around, hovering over the building. This is Falcon 2. We see you. Come out one at a time. The helicopter lowered a rope system. Royce let the scientists go first. One of them was carrying a briefcase, the other a wounded woman. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The doors that had been holding back the zombies burst open. They poured onto the roof. Fire. The automatic weapons rattled. Jacobs fired a whole burst, taking out the first 3, but the next ones were already crawling in from all sides. The helicopter hovered low. One soldier was already hanging on a rope. Another was helping to lift the case. Royce shouted. 90 seconds left. Jacobs, cover the north. The sergeant turned the grenade launcher around and fired directly into the crowd. Boom. The zombie's body was blown to pieces. But the wave didn't stop. One of the fighters, Cooper, didn't make it. A zombie grabbed him by his armor, pushed him to the edge, and Cooper fell off the roof. Royce froze for a moment. Another one lost. At the last minute, there were 3 left. Royce, Jacobs, and 1 scientist. The helicopter hovered dangerously close, exposing itself to a possible attack. Go. Royce pushed the scientist onto the rope. We'll cover you. Jacobs defended himself until the very end. The zombie had already grabbed his arm. Go. Jacobs shouted and threw Royce the flash drive. Save the data. And he jumped into the crowd with a knife in his hand to gain at least a few seconds. Royce jumped onto the rope. His feet slipped, but he held on. The helicopter gained altitude. He saw the CDC roof filling with the dead and Jacobs disappearing among them, fighting to the last. Royce raised the flash drive, clutching it in his palm. It wasn't just a memory. It was a chance for the world, a chance for revenge. The helicopter touched down on the runway. Lieutenant Royce, the only survivor of the combat group, jumped off the cable. Medics rushed over, but he waved them away. I'm fine. I've got what we went there for. He handed the flash drive to Colonel Mays, the commander of the evacuation headquarters. The colonel looked closely at Royce. Is this it? The formula? Yes. And also, Royce swallowed. This is the last thing Jacobs passed on. A tense silence fell over the briefing tent. A group of analysts worked with the flash drive, while videos of bodies coming back to life in CDC operating rooms played in the background on the monitor. The virus mutates every hour, but the scientists inside managed to record something else, said Major Driscoll, pointing to a fragment of data. What exactly? Asked Mace. A subvariant. They named it Chimera. A hybrid form, more resilient, faster, with remnants of thought. Everyone looked at each other. This meant that some of the infected were not just mindless corpses, they were beginning to adapt. Point Beta, mobile laboratory. Royce stood aside in his armor, watching the equipment being loaded. Colonel Mace approached him. You have an hour to rest. Then it's back to battle. Where to this time? There are signals from the old Pelican Ridge prison. Chimera have been spotted there. If we want to find out how to destroy them, we need a body for research. Royce sighed. And who's with me? Team Shadow 3. Former Special Forces. They don't care that your squad died. But if the same thing happens again, you know what will happen. Royce nodded. He hadn't forgotten the faces of Jacobs, Cooper, Sean. Everyone who didn't return from the CDC. Royce sat down on a bench near the warehouse. He held Jacobs's dog tag in his hands. We didn't die in vain, brother, he whispered. Engines began to rev up in the sky. The helicopter for the next mission was already warming up its rotors. The black helicopter hovered over the old, scorched territory. Below lay the destroyed prison complex. The signal from there was clear. Someone or something was still inside. 15 minutes. Quick sweep. Sample. Exit. No heroics, said Master Sergeant Vega, commander of the Shadow 3 team, tersely. If these Chimera are really smart, we'll need heroism, Royce muttered. They landed near the inner courtyard. The cameras were broken, the doors half open, blood on the floor and walls. No screams. Only the wind and the creaking of doors. The first 10 minutes were quiet. Too quiet. It's a trap, whispered one of the fighters, Bannon. And then a figure emerged from the dark corridor, not shaky like a zombie, but confident, with the shadow of a predator. One, Royce whispered. The figure stopped, looked up, and spoke. You're late, but you can still stop this. Royce gripped his weapon. Who are you? A former guard. They didn't completely change me. Chimera aren't just mutants. They remember, and they hate. They cannot be stopped by ordinary means. At that moment, 3 infected creatures burst out from behind him, their movements lightning fast, their coordination almost perfect. Contact, Vega shouted. The battle began. Gunshots, grenades, close combat. One of the Shadow 3 fighters fell. The Chimera weren't just attacking. They were attacking in a coordinated manner. This isn't an infection anymore. It's evolution, Royce whispered, covering Bannon. The body of one of the Chimera was finally packed up. Vega was wounded. 2 more were dead. Time to get out, Royce commanded, firing at the attackers. The helicopter hovered over the roof. They climbed up amid the fighting. The Chimera did not try to pursue them. They just watched from the courtyard. Smart. Calm. With hatred. Air route to base. Royce held the container with the body. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from understanding. This is just the beginning, he whispered. They landed in the backyard of an isolated facility codenamed South 19, a former nuclear bunker converted into a CDC and DARPA research area. The container with Chimera's body was immediately taken to the laboratory. The people in protective suits didn't even ask questions. Everything had been prepared in advance. If I believed in conspiracies, I'd think they were waiting for this, Vega said, clenching the bandages on his shoulder. And you still don't believe it? Royce asked, looking at him with a devastated expression. Panic reigns at headquarters. There are isolated outbreaks across the United States. The Pentagon is in semi-evacuation mode. SOS signals are coming from the East Coast. Even Alaska is no longer silent. The military map was lit up with red dots. Laboratory Block 3B. Royce was unexpectedly summoned to the analysis room. Dr. Ellie Mason, DARPA's leading virologist, was already waiting for him there, wearing a mask and glasses with gray circles under her eyes. I studied the sample cells. This virus doesn't just mutate humans. It rewrites them from the inside. RNA chipping that embeds itself into neural circuits. So it's like a biocomputer? Royce asked. Self-learning, collective, and purposeful. Chimera is no longer biology. It's synthesis. Their bodies are just shells. Royce was silent. It all sounded like science fiction, but he had seen one of those chimera dodge a shot. And worst of all, Mason added, they can listen, and it seems they already know we're here. Suddenly, an alarm sounded throughout the base. Intrusion. Sector B4. I repeat, intrusion into the bunker. Royce instantly grabbed his weapon. They hadn't even managed to evacuate the laboratory yet, and the internal system was already detecting movements deeper than it should have been. One of the infected is still here, Mason whispered. No, not someone. Something they allowed to be brought in with them, Royce replied, and fired his automatic weapon into the newly opened ventilation shaft, from which came, not a sound, but silence. A deafening, viscous, conscious silence. The alarm faded away. It was drowned out by a system failure. The monitors went out one by one. The cameras went blind. The entire surveillance network is down. One of the technicians shouted before the connection was cut off with a loud crack. Vega felt something creeping behind the walls. He felt the air change. Mason panicked and locked her compartment. But it was too late. It was already inside. Sector B4, laboratory. When the door opened, what stood behind it was not quite human. An infected technician, but with eyes that glowed yellow. Skin gray as cement. Movements unnaturally precise. It's not him anymore. Mason whispered. He's being controlled. Royce fired a shot. Right in the forehead. The body fell, but the hand continued to twitch. Server room. Vega and two fighters managed to get to the main node. They needed to transmit the encrypted virus dump to the command center at the CDC in Atlanta at any cost. Perhaps it was their only chance for salvation. We have 5 minutes maximum, Vega shouted. Transmitting, replied the communications officer. Signal sent. Confirmed. Working. But at the same time as the confirmation, the system picked up a return signal. Someone, or something, from outside, began to respond. Signal? Where from? Asked Royce. From space. The technician was pale. Low orbit. Unknown satellite. Mason was speechless. If this was true, the virus had not been created here. It had simply been activated. Darkness. No lighting. The autonomous systems had failed. There was a hum in the corridors. Not screams. Not moans. But a hum, as if thousands of voices were whispering in unison. Vega gripped his assault rifle. Royce checked his grenades. Mason held the flash drive with the data in her clenched fist. This isn't just the apocalypse. This is activation. We are collateral damage, Royce said. And at that moment, a single light came on throughout the base. A red beacon with the inscription, Evac Zone, 5 miles south. Activation Phase 2. After 30 minutes of fighting, for remained. Mason with a clenched flash drive. It contained data proving that the virus was not just biological. It was a trigger for something much worse. Royce and Vega, with their last rounds of ammunition, and one sapper, Corporal Fisher, whose hand was shaking, but he could still activate the explosives. Exit from the bunker. They reached the airlock. Outside, the red light of sunset. The desert was burning, but not with fire, with movement. Millions of bodies. Those who had not yet been bitten but had already begun to change were also infected. How did they all get here? Whispered Fisher. Someone gathered them. Or something, said Royce. Vega glanced at the beacon, Evac Zone 4, 2 miles. There was no car. The road led straight through the horde. Decision time. Fisher, blow up the entrance. We can't let them break through here, Royce commanded. Fisher nodded and ran back. 30 seconds later, the bunker shook. The explosion covered the tunnel and all the lower levels. We're alone now, Mason said, clutching the flash drive. But with this, we can save another city. Vega pointed to the map, where the backup command post was marked. They moved forward, straight across the desert. Silently, slowly. Behind them, an ominous horizon. Ahead, the unknown. Evac location. They were met by a helicopter. One, unmarked. The pilot, wearing a fully enclosed helmet, took the flash drive from Mason without a word and pointed to the ramp. Who sent you? Royce asked. They haven't arrived yet, the pilot replied calmly. But they will soon. Who are they? Mason shuddered. The pilot turned his head. His voice sounded different. Cold. Not quite. Human. Those who launched the first phase. You are just data. Observation complete.